What's up, creatives? We're here, and I'm going to show you something very interesting today. I created a music theory agent and a music generation agent using the Mastra agent framework. Say agent one more time, real fast. But basically, Mastra is kind of a new framework, kind of new, on the block, and it allows you to create agents that wrap kind of your LLM models and provide things like system prompts, tooling, memory, RAG, and things like that, just out of the box, easy for you to use. And I use the framework to basically create these kind of like music-centric agents to kind of like help you with your kind of music production workflows. So let's check it out. Mastra is, like I mentioned, a framework for basically creating AI like agents. Connects to your local LLM or a cloud-based LLM. You wrap the agent in some logic that you can do here, and it allows you to just kind of create kind of curated agents. So I can create multiple. I can have one that's like a music composer versus a music teacher versus one that specializes maybe in analyzing the user's music history, and it can kind of like help guide them through stuff and actually have tools to connect to like APIs in the application. You know, like there are various different like reasons you'd want like different agents. So this allows you to basically quickly kind of like whip these out, and it integrates very heavily with a lot of the kind of like AI stuff in the ecosystem right now. So it connects with the Vercel AI SDK. It utilizes a lot of the Vercel AI SDK UI elements, which are AI elements. And you'll see these throughout the documentation in that process. If you're into the AI ecosystem and you've been doing a lot of this kind of stuff, you will be very familiar with a lot of the stuff they're doing. This, like the agent API that you basically create with this, is compatible with the Vercel AI SDK. So it just all kind of like works together really well, and they've kind of thought out a lot of the stuff that you don't have to think about, which is nice. So taking a look at the projects, if you want to check out these projects, head over to my GitHub, and I have the server and the client-side application both available. Why would you want to use Mastra? Basically, you can kind of like browse through their website if you wanted to sell yourself on it. But one of the main things that was nice is that they offer kind of a studio admin dashboard for your agents. So I can basically go in and quickly like chat with one if I wanted to, as well as also browse like metrics and like have some observability over like my agents and what they're doing. It kind of offers these things a little bit out of the box, and that helps you not have to set those things up yourself, which is always nice. But once you have the project cloned, if there's one requirement, make sure that you just have LM Studio. And I was utilizing specifically the Quen coder model. That one is like about a year old now, and it's one of the better models if you have to utilize things that actually have tools. So it's better at doing tool calls and handling multiple tool calls and things like that. So highly recommend that model over something like the GPT OSS. So once you have LM Studio set up and you have the server basically connected, make sure that you have your server running and it runs as a local server on your computer. We can pop over to the server project once you have all the dependencies installed and all that good stuff, and just load up the server. And let's check out what it looks like. And you can see here that I have basically a kind of studio admin interface here. They list all the different agents that you have available. It shows the models that you have them attached to. And if you wanted to, I can just click one and I can just start chatting with one. So I can say, hey, what is the MIDI index for C for A5? It's going to take some time to actually do the prompting because I'm on a local model. So you'll see here that it is basically loading up my Quen model into my kind of like GPU RAM cache and stuff. You'll notice it in a minute processing my request, and then you'll notice it generate the actual tokens for the response. And you can see now it's generating the response. And if we go back, we can see that it utilized some of our tools, and we have a basically tool to say, take a MIDI number and get a note from it, which probably is the best situation. You kind of want one in reverse for this request, but it was still able to use that to kind of like guess what the number was, get the kind of like close number, see that it was wrong, and then basically know how to do the math to figure out the next one, verify it with the tool, and then give us the correct answer. So it's really nice with this kind of like framework here. I've talked about it in my previous blogs. Basically, when you're building these agents, especially for things like education, they're prone to things like hallucination. These things are not factual machines. They are made to be guessing and doing things like that. To kind of eliminate that kind of probability and chance out of their responses, we can basically provide them with more tools and information, like maybe more context up front, or in this case, a tool that it can literally just call and be like, hey, I don't actually remember what that MIDI index is. Can you tell me a computer that has like the information encoded in a database somewhere? Boom, it hits it. It gets the valid information. It can validate itself, and then that gives it a better response. And you can kind of trust the response a little bit more. So it's really nice. It's nice getting this interface with Mastra, being able to chat really quickly and test your agent, test the tooling, see the tooling that's available. We can see if I go to the traces and stuff, I can see the calls that I was just making and asking like the questions and stuff. You can see the system prompt that gets attached and stuff like that. So it's good. It's a nice little interface. So if we pop over to the master project here, this is the server that we were just looking at running all that dashboard and stuff. We can go inside and we can see that we have a Mastra folder, and that creates a index.ts that basically exposes a Mastra function that runs just the whole server. Like this is our Fastify, this is the Express kind of like server running here. And then inside of this, we have a kind of configuration for just everything. We can see that we define API routes for all of our different chats. It's basically just /chat/music generation agent or music theory agent and stuff like that. Here we define our agents themselves. We define all the different tools that we may need across the agents and stuff like that. And then if we pop into one of the agents, I can show you the music theory one. You can see that it's just an agent kind of like definition that they give you. You define a configuration for it. It's pretty simple, kind of boilerplatey kind of stuff. We have a system prompt here under the instructions. We have the model that we're using. You can see that we're using LM Studio, kind of a local API, and the Quen model specifically, which is nice. Like you'll be able to kind of set like, maybe I use this one model with kind of like this one agent with a really efficient model. And then if I need like kind of like more reasoning thinking or something, I can assign it to a different like more intense model, which is nice. And then we have a list of all the different tools here that the model can call. And if you're not familiar with tools, basically when the LLM needs something, it can call a server, it can ask it for something. It usually has an input schema. So like if it needs some sort of information, it's usually like a search request, like, hey, give me books with this one title in it. So we'll need a search term input. Or in our case, we're looking for information about music. So we're asking for things like, give me a chord or give me a piano note. So the API basically knows how to use that kind of like JSON to plug in a piano note there. The server goes and it runs and it executes the tool. And in our case, we basically use the tonal kind of like music theory library. I don't think, yeah, you can see it there, tonal. And we use that library to basically query and get the chord. And it just basically does like its magic to go get the actual chord. And we get the chords, we return it to the LLM. And as you can see here, we output chords. And that gives the LLM like the notes and the name of the chord and all that stuff. One of the nice aspects about this whole process is that it's really integrated with LLMs itself. Because of course, you're making AI agents. Why wouldn't this also be really easy to work with AI? So they have a Mastra agent skill that you can use. And it basically teaches your LLM how to use Mastra and like set it up, do all the agents, do all the tooling, everything that you need. So basically what I was able to do is spin up OpenCode. We can activate the Mastra skill, which I had in my repo, and then I can ask it to do something like create a new music tool, you know? And what it'll do is it'll actually go, and I can show you an example of that. I basically asked it, hey, go inside of this one tool and change the input schema to be like kind of like more MIDI notes instead. It gave it the whole Mastra skill like in the upfront as it normally does with skills. It was able to go inside of the repo and kind of read it a little bit, and it created the tools that I needed, and it updated the file, and it like added the changes that I needed. And it knew exactly where to go and knew exactly the format of the agent and the tooling and all that. So highly recommend this kind of like workflow with this particular thing, because a lot of this stuff is very copy-paste boilerplate anyway. So being able to leverage just an LLM to do the copy-paste for you is kind of nice. With this particular project, I also created a tonal skill, which utilizes the tonal JavaScript library that I mentioned earlier. And that one, I basically just went to the tonal documentation. I grabbed all of their markdown files, and I basically downloaded them into a folder and created a skill that basically tells the LLM, hey, here's how to use the code a little bit, and I give it some code examples. And then I also tell it, hey, if you need more information about this particular like API or this functionality, go check it out in the documentation that I basically copy pasted. So with this, I was able to say, hey, set up a tool, and literally set up a tool that has like basically all of these APIs. So get a chord, get a scale, get a harmony, get a voice, basically anything that this API was able to do. And the LLM was able to basically go, and so all these different tools that you're seeing here, these were actually all automatically generated by the LLM using my skill, using the Mastra skill as well, and basically telling it to just introspectively understand the tonal API and understand the other API and kind of plug those two things together. So Mastra, we get it. You make agents, you make tools, all that stuff. But all this is a backend for front end. Like I should be able to be making like an actual application with this. So if I actually go over to my front end application, we can actually see that I have a chat app that I can go to that connects to this API. So I can ask it something like, give me a C minor piano melody. This connects to the same Mastra agent that we created, technically the music generation one. It goes and it runs my LLM. I can hear my GPU spinning up right now, generating the tokens. And it creates a melody for us. So now we have a C minor melody here. And you can see that I have a C4 key, F, G, A, and it holds the C5 at the end a little bit. And you can see here, it describes everything. I could have just read what it said, but I described to you what it generated. And you can see here that ideally I can export this as a MIDI file, so I can go use this inside of like my Ableton app, or I'm just quickly visualizing it, or even maybe playing it. So if you look here, we're actually using the AI SDK from Vercel and the use chat hook that you may be familiar with, commonly. And that just connects to the Mastra kind of like agent that we were like building and showing earlier. So I can actually go here and I can change this to the music theory agent, have the application reload. What are the notes in a C major chord? We can see here that we have a different kind of looking tool. So here we actually have a custom tool that I've created, or custom UI for a tool. Basically the same way that this works, where it ran a tool. Same thing, it's still running the tool, but rather than showing the user this like JSON that like, if I'm a developer, this maybe helps me, but as a user, this means nothing to me. So rather than using that space as a kind of debugging zone almost, we can kind of use it as a place to kind of show the user just more relevant information. But yeah, you get the idea. Oh. There you go. Kind of what I've been hacking on the last couple days, experimenting with the Mastra API, and just seeing the potential of it and stuff. Thank you all for watching. As always, check out the Git repo if you want the source code. Check out my blog if you want more detailed explanations. Check out my social media if you want to see me working on these things and you want to see these things kind of happen live. I share my stories and like code and stuff all the time on there. And subscribe. That's always really good. Helps me do more videos like this and get out there to more people. Comment if you want down below. Just say something cool, like, I don't know, like, what's up, 420? This is dank, fire. Just put stuff like that, like one word, like emojis even. I don't know if that's really good on YouTube. We do that on Instagram a lot. Like, I just go on my homie's stuff and I'm just like, fire. Like, what's up? But yeah, thank you for watching. Take care. As always, stay curious.